There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean Breeze Books. Welcome back to my channel and a family reunion type of book conversation about a novel that we have all read. In fact, Mum and I have read it based on our cousin Margot's recommendation. And first, let me mention the book. It is Canadian writer Elizabeth Hay's latest novel. It's from 2023, and it's called Snow Road Station. I'm joined for this discussion by my mother, Helen. Hello, Mum.
Hi there.
And my cousin Margot. Now, Mum and I are in Saskatoon, and Margot's in Montreal. So, Margot, hello, hello.
Hello. So happy to be here.
And this is Margot's debut on my channel. Hopefully, the first of many such appearances. This is a book that's really easy to spoil. So, depending on how much detail we get into in this chat, I will put up a spoiler wall when we're ready to talk about anything that's not described on the synopsis on the inside flap. And there's a lot that is not mentioned there. So probably the spoiler wall will go up early, and you will, at that point, have a decision to make whether you want to keep watching or rush out, get the book, read it, and then come back. I'll try to explain the opening premise of the novel, and then we'll just get into things. This is Sean from the future. We've now finished the discussion, and we didn't go into spoiler territory, so the whole thing is spoiler free. Yay! So the main character here, it's set in 2008, and the opening scene is in Ottawa, and the main character is Lulu, and she is a professional actor. She's in her 60s. She is described not only on the synopsis, but by many of the characters in the novel as a sexy woman. And it's just after one of her performances, and suddenly a man barges into her dressing room. It's not an aggressive entrance, but just unexpected. And it's an old flame from her youth that she hasn't seen in 40 years, possibly. And she's headed to the area where she grew up, maybe even her actual hometown, which is called Snow Road Station, that weekend for a wedding. It is her nephew Blake's wedding. And it turns out that her old flame, whose name is Tony, he's going as the escort of the bride's aunt. And then Lulu drives from Ottawa to this remote village in maple syrup country in Ontario, Snow Road Station. So why don't we just quickly weigh in on, did we like or love this book or what? I think we all liked it to some degree. And I'd like to invite Margot to start. Just tell us, what did you think of this book?
Oh, spearheading into the convo. Yeah, my recommendation, I'm sure you all understood, was I myself am in my 60s, and I loved the book because of how it focused on life, kind of the arc of life through relationship, and as mirrored by the seasons, so connection with Earth. So I really love the book for that reason, as well as some of her writing is so magnificent.
That's the word.
I could just savor the sentences, and it really felt Canadian to me as it touched on all of those previous topics.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you say more about what
Go right
it
ahead.
was? About how, in what way did it feel Canadian?
Yeah,
I mean,
so the weather, the snow,
yeah,
the slow movement into spring, and then the rising up of spring and sap and maple syrup, obviously. And then the beauty of the sun in the summer, and then the ripening of everything into the fall. And just as all of those ages are reflected in that same kind of way.
I'm glad I pressed you. That was a magnificent explanation of it.
Why, thank you, Sean.
And I'm sitting here biting my tongue not to say that it is, and despite the backdrop of being in maple syrup, maple tree country, it is not a sappy novel.
You silly man.
Thank you. Thank you. Mom,
No,
that was a bad joke. So, Mom, what did you think?
Margot was given a wonderful synopsis of it, absolutely wonderful, and all of that. But I would add, I think Elizabeth Hay does such wonderful character work with the relationships between people. Oh my goodness, it was just absolutely a page turner. Who is going to do what next? They're not just like sweet little people. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on between the characters, but there's also the wonderful aspect of family and how they've come and they've been together and they've had their fights and they're back together again, and it's just awesome. And she just is a wonderful writer. Yeah, she really is. But the book was just, oh yeah, couldn't wait for. And of course, Sean read it to me. I would like to take
So
it now and read it and read the words, but it was just an awesome. Yeah, just couldn't wait every night for my chapter to get read.
Yeah,
so
great.
charming.
I'll explain what that means. Most people watching know that I read to my mom and also separately to another cousin, Mary Jean, every night, and it's on Facebook Messenger. And so I'm not sitting in the room with mom reading to her. I'm reading and recording, and she listens to it when she wishes. I love this novel. I just loved it. And I would take off from what Mum has said about the character work, because the character work is what made me love this novel. And I want to talk specifically about the protagonist, Lulu. I just don't remember reading about such a fascinating, what would you say, early, not late middle age, in your 60s. Are you late middle aged or are you, what's the phrase?
I consider myself an elder at this point. I don't feel like a middle.
Yeah, but yeah, the phrase young elderly sounds, but let's just say this. I haven't read about a woman in her 60s that was so fascinatingly drawn. And
And it's about time.
absolutely, most of my favorite fiction is about older women. But this one had something different.
And also that coming from the margins as an artist.
A fascinating portrait of being an artist. Absolutely. Yeah. Because the other thing that I should have said in setting up how the story opens is she is forgetting her lines. She's in this one woman Beckett play. What is it called? Happiness or something?
Happy days.
Happy Day. And she's on stage immersed in kind of a blob of clay or something for all or most of the play. And she's a professional actor, well known and a really excellent actor by all accounts, but she was starting to forget lines in the play and she's mortified. And so that's really on her mind as she goes home for this weekend. So that's the other thing. But I think if this doesn't end up being my favorite read of the year, which is quite possible, I'm sure she will be my favorite character. I just loved being in her head.
Yeah. She truly is a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, a piece of work.
And so maybe we'll tippy toe into what she finds when she goes home. Let's talk about it as in a non-spoilery way to start, which means we can't say a lot. And then maybe we'll put the spoiler wall up. But she goes home for this wedding, and all of the typical emotions and family dynamics that come to the fore the weekend of a family wedding are intensified or complicated by the fact that there's a unbelievably contorted web of connection between these characters, so that one of the people getting married is not actually the child of who everybody in the community is supposed to think is that child. It's actually somebody else in the community. So I can say that's non-spoilery enough. And there's a lot of tension around that and between the other parent and the person getting married because of this affair that caused them to come into the world. And all of that connects to Lulu's family quite closely. And so she is enmeshed is not the right word, because from her point of view, it doesn't seem like it's a bad thing. It just draws
Yeah,
her closer to all these people. I
yeah.
think for some of the other characters, it's a sense of enmeshment that it's just too difficult. But so she has such love for the mother of the groom, Certainly does for the father of the groom. I will leave it at that. And also the man getting married. And I just loved being thrown into that complicated dynamic for a weekend. And I thought the description of the night before the wedding and the actual wedding, oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah. I guess would it be spoiler to say the wedding wasn't really a happy affair? It was a complicated affair.
The groom wasn't really sure that he wanted to get married. So that made it complicated. And one of the parents of one of the people getting married made a speech where they slipped up and said something they weren't supposed to, which really angered one of the people getting married. And that was a big scene. All that was just so well done.
The groom was a Christian,
He
right?
was the fundamentalist pastor.
And so I wanted to hear what Helen thought of this. But what I found really interesting about the portrayal of his belief system, often people write about kind of religious beliefs in a very kind of black and white way. And what I felt about his character was that he had a strong moral compass, but his day-to-day beliefs and reflections were as transient and as they came and they went in a very kind of easy flowing fashion. So, yeah, I was wondering what you thought of all of that, Helen.
He seemed to come to his religion because he was in a mess and it was a place that he found himself belonging.
Yeah.
And I think there's a number of religions that do that for people, quite a
Yeah.
lot of religions. And he obviously was a speaker and able to command an audience because he became a pastor. And that's what it is. It's almost theatrical. It's people listen because the person up there is saying something that they want to hear. And I don't know whether he did that or not. There were other things that he was other than a pastor, for sure.
He was a teacher, high school art teacher or high school teacher of something. But and then
Yeah.
the preaching gig was part-time.
Yeah, he did. He had a moral compass, all right, but also he was quite conflicted about what he was about.
Absolutely. And where he was going and what he was kind
About to
of.
do and
Mhm.
a complicated relationship with his mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way she portrayed that kind of polarity about his decision making, I found that really interesting.
And also that he, as a character, helped illuminate Lulu's character because she saw things in him that the reader didn't necessarily see. And I loved how that worked and how we saw him through her in a way that we didn't necessarily see when he was on stage, so to speak. That made me
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
Lulu's complicatedness and her insights and whatever. Yeah.
But that's so true. Yeah, it was through, yeah, it absolutely
Her
was
eyes. Yeah.
through the conversations that they had and her support of him or her listening to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we got to see who he was. We came to see who he was. Yeah.
And it just almost seemed like she understood him better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Story,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say the most important relationship in the book is between Lulu and her old friend Nan. I think that's
Yeah.
the central relationship. So this is, as in many ways, I would describe this as a novel of friendship. And I
Yeah.
loved their friendship. Again, complicated. They had been close when they were children, and then there'd been what, a 30, 40 year where they just
Hiatus.
were not connected at all, and then they came back together and very close. And I loved Nan's character too. She was quite a piece of work.
She had a gentleness to her that was quite wonderful. Yeah.
I love their relationship. And I guess that's what I was referring to about the arc of time and how
Yeah.
wonderful it is that you can have these formative relationships and then live a couple of lives and then reunite and look back on your whole life and understand it in a different way and enjoy the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there is a conflict, that's not the right way to say it. Lulu is carrying a bit of a grudge about something that Nan said years ago that got back to her, and that gets worked on in the novel. And again, I love that to show that just because you're old friends doesn't mean there isn't stuff that comes up that you have to deal with. And that was just shown in a really effective way, I thought. So the thing that we're not going to talk about in a spoiler way, but it's a significant part of the plot, is that something awful happens to Lulu the night of the wedding, at the very end of the night, late into the maybe the next morning. And that we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it was a traumatic experience occurs at the end of a very long day, which is intended to be celebratory.
Yeah.
And because it's coming from a cycle of traumatic experiences
Yes.
for a woman, and I think that's important to say, in this society at this time, that I was left with the sense of it's never ending. Like
Yeah.
this never stops.
Absolutely. It was really painful to read and really central to what happens from then on. And Elizabeth Hay puts that in the center of a novel where I would say the rest of the men, they're not evil. They are nuanced characters and mostly gentle, however confused they might be. They're not perpetrators. They're not like that. And
Yeah, they're
so,
full, you have a sense of their full humanity. Yeah.
absolutely.
There's a good word. There's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. Yeah.
And so that makes what happened, the terrible thing that happened to Lulu, it just kind of situates it in a way that makes it even more awful. Yeah.
And poignant.
And poignant. Absolutely. I want to read a few sentences. There's a couple here
Good.
about being Canadian that I marked, and there's one
Okay.
maybe longer passage. Somebody says to Lulu, back in the day maybe, I met an Irish writer, a very rude and mischievous woman who joked that Canadians are Germans without the charm. That's rude. Here's another one several pages later, and this is just Lulu's inner thoughts. Canadians think $10 bills are purple. Americans think all guns are loaded. And that's the difference between Canadians and Americans, she thought. And that's a key thing in the aftermath of this trauma, where that little observation comes. So there's a lot of humor in here and a lot of punchy things. She's off into the winter. She ends up, her time at Snow Road Station gets extended, and she just falls in love with the nature of the place, as Margot has indicated. And
Yeah.
she has this memory, and it's about 5 sentences. Looking straight down into one well of blue light, she saw the black twig at the bottom and remembered Eldon, her set designing pal, dear Eldon, telling her about a turning point in his life, how he had been sitting on a rock beside a lake, alone and desolate, when he noticed insects skittering across the surface of the water, then fish moving under the water, then weeds moving under the fish. The weeds reminded him of winter grasses bent over by drifting snow. Then a footstep in the woods, the crackle of leaves, connected him to even more hidden life, and he realized he was part of an orchestration of movement that had no end. Chills. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Is there anything more we want to say about this novel? I think we've sold it quite well already.
The only thing I want to say is that the framework of a play,
Yes,
Oh,
like
yes.
just starting with Snow Road Station is like a 3-act
that's right.
play.
Yeah.
And it I thought a lot about why did she do that, aside from Lulu and her background.
Yeah.
And is she saying that life is a stage?
I didn't think about that as much as you obviously have, but that's a really interesting question. So there's 3 sections, and the title is Snow Road Station. The first section is snow, the second section is road, and the final section is station. I also didn't get very far with thinking about how the content of those 3 sections reflect their titles, snow and road and station. I didn't come up with any insights to that, but it made me curious to
Have
note that
another look. Yeah.
choice. Yeah. This is a book I fully intend to reread and go on that shelf. Sure.
Yeah, I want to read it again too.
Yeah.
I guess I did think a little bit about snow and about road and about station.
Yeah.
The snow, it was a reflection, the writing was about where their lives were all mixed up. They were in chaos and in a storm in lots of ways. And the road part was how they navigated through their lives.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And the station was where they came to
At rest.
at the end. So
Uh-huh.
that did cross my mind when I looked at those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stationary, not moving,
Yeah.
but
But
yet
the
with the option to move later if one chooses it. Wow. Very good, Mom. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
The insights of all of us, they're different observations, and yet, wow, you can kind of see it when you hear the other person talk about it. It was just such a grand novel.
And I think that this would be a great book for a book club pick.
It would.
Definitely.
So much
It
to talk
would.
about.
It would.
Let's move into, I'd like you each to talk about, because this is not your first rodeo with Elizabeth Hayes. So, Mom, you've been a fan of Elizabeth Hayes for years. Tell us about you and Elizabeth Hayes books.
It was actually
Margot's
Margot's mother, Nancy, that said, "Oh, you've got to read A Student of Weather and tell me what you think." And
No kidding.
that was like when I was at Elrose. So that was like 30 years ago. And
Wow.
and that was a very different book and a very different take on a lot of things than I'd read before. And she and I talked about that a little bit. Do you remember that one?
What did you guys say?
What was A Student of Weather, and it went back and forth between Saskatchewan and Ontario.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't really recall it too much. Then
Okay.
the next one that I read was Late Nights on Air. I loved that one.
Me too.
Really loved that one. I'd like to reread it. Yeah. And I don't know whether I've read a lot more of hers, but I intend to. Yeah. We want to read the whole life.
You definitely do.
Oh, yeah.
I'll turn it over to Margot. Tell us about the prequel, and then about you and Elizabeth Hay in general.
I don't think I have that much to say, but the prequel I read in the same order. So it was exciting for me to meet the characters again and actually understand the context better.
And what's the title of the one that comes before this?
His whole life.
His Whole Life. Hey.
And the cover of that book reminds me of my little brother, who I told, you have to read this book, you're on the cover.
I don't have the cover in front of me. I don't have the book yet, but
he's a cute little blonde on a wharf going out into a lake.
okay.
Yeah. And so it speaks to the raising of her child, and it's back and forth between Canada and America. And how one thing we didn't really talk about was what was happening in the financial system at this time. But in that book, it starts off with the build up to the Quebec referendum.
Oh, okay.
You know, as an Easterner, it really hit home. I have strong memories about those dialogues when I was growing up. So, yeah, just to bring it back to herself, I love how she contextualizes the Canadian conversation in her novels, and also as a reflection to our southern neighbors, because she has experience there and we all do.
What do you mean when you say she has experience? Do you mean did she live there?
Yeah.
Oh, and
And
yeah, I see it. Spent a number of years in Mexico and New York City, makes her home in Ottawa.
and so that relationship, especially between Canada and the US, is not something that a lot of people write about. And so I appreciate that too. So I appreciate her from kind of a systems nationalistic level as well, that she not only portrays individuals with such exquisite humanity, but also talks about our cultural context. Same was true for the one in Yellowknife. What was Late
That
Nights
was
on
Late
Air?
Nights on Air. I
Yeah,
was thinking that very thing, Margot, and
yeah,
it was definitely about what it's like to live up in the Yukon.
yeah.
Yes, it was very much about that.
And I related to that after my time in Nunavut, although they're quite different, but they have a lot more in common than we do to them. Yeah.
I just wonder if the next novel is going to be set in the Trumpian era.
Well,
Hard to avoid, eh? Since it
Right.
goes on and on.
We're not going to make any decisions on air here. It's late morning on air, but who knows? This might turn into an Elizabeth Hay cousinly book club or something. Who knows? But this has been great. And for my part, Mom has been, I don't know how, if I should say trying to, but she's really been suggesting that I give Elizabeth Hay a try for all these years. And finally, Margot shamed me into what? Read Elizabeth Hay? What the heck? Now I have, and I see what all the fuss is about. What a great chat, Mum and Margot. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
it was just fun. Thank you so much.
That's
Thanks for bringing us together.